your name is James Schramko. I'm sure my audience is familiar with you. But if not, you want to give just a little background on kind of how you got here into this seat?
Sure. Well, I basically, we met some time ago when I was interested in search engine optimization, and you were very good at that, among other things.
SEO. You remember those days, man?
SEO
days.
Crushing it with SEO.
You know when you talk about like the SEO days that like in this internet game, like it's like you've been around a while. You know?
Yeah, so I really, from maybe 12 years ago, started in that, and up till just 2 years ago when I sold my SEO business. That was a strong business, and I learnt a lot of things with the online world there. And a while back you came along and asked me to help you out with your Smart Marketer brand, which was more or less just a domain name. Yeah,
it was nothing at the time.
Yeah,
it did not exist.
No, I think you had the domain.
I had the domain.
And said, would you help me build the same as what you've done with Superfast Business, but I'll understand if you say no, because it's probably too similar. And I said, no, happy to help you.
I was surprised too.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure, because you don't know how people are going to respond. Like, hey, because I believe you get what you want from people who have it. If someone is doing something that you want to do, you go and you find out how to do that from them. The old like apprenticeship model.
Yeah.
I saw what you were doing, and I thought, that is what I want to do. That is the closest thing. I looked at all these models. I looked at a number of people in the industry and how their businesses felt. Like there's a lot of people who were doing content who then led to informational offers or coaching or events. Like a lot of people had a similar thing, but like the way that yours felt was the closest to like, boy, that's what I'm looking for, that thing. And it felt different, and I think the reason is, I don't know, you can maybe articulate why it felt different, even though it was such a similar model to what some other people had done.
I think because mine started with the philosophy of having a lifetime customer. So everything was around the customer, and by extension of that, community. And it's funny, like we come here in 2018, 10 years down the track, and that's the latest tactic. I heard this today, community and focus around the customer, not the product.
Yeah.
And that's been the core of it. So it fits someone like you who's got great values, and you want to make your brand an extension of that.
Yes. You've been around the industry, I think maybe, I got in around 2004, 2005. So probably similar.
2005, 2006.
Yeah, similar time frame. One of the big fears that people have that I see come up a lot, we're at an event right now. We're at the Traffic and Conversion Summit. There's 5,000 people out there. It's madness. And there's this sense of, it's like the way I can internalize it or feel it is like a dog who's like just huffing really quickly, like this fear of missing out. And it's like, man, we were in it from domaining to SEO to AdWords to like, what would you say to someone who is afraid that they have missed the boat? Like, does one just keep coming along? Does another boat just keep coming by? Or how does it work,
I'd say just be a good swimmer. Because then if the boat sinks, you can swim across to a new one.
Which you've had to pivot, right? There's a buzzword for you. Pivot.
I'm going to just make it a simpler word, is being okay with change. When I started online and then when I quit my job, which was about 9.5 years ago, I made a promise to myself that I will be responsible for my outcomes, but also that I will be fine with change. Because you have to innovate. And Peter Drucker talked about this, marketing and innovation, which is something I think you're brilliant at. You are the most innovative guy. That's why you're the top of the heap now for e-commerce, because you see what's coming, you adapt to it, you're comfortable to let go of old ways and to, it's literally like swinging from one vine, get a firm hold on the next one, and then let go of the old one. And the people who complain or they're scared about it, they're the ones who want to get all their ducks in a row. They want to perfect everything. They want to research until they crack the magic formula. And then they go for it. And then the second things change, they panic and they drown. And you don't have to go long till you see people panicking about Facebook algorithm changes, or YouTube's closed the account, or AdWords have suspended me, or this one trick model that I was doing doesn't work anymore. And it's been the common theme for at least the last decade that I've been around.
Yeah, that willingness to be nimble, to shift, to change direction. But one of the interesting things that I've found with this, it mostly feels like that fear is around visibility source for the business. Like, where am I going to find new customers? And there's always another one coming. It's SEO, it's Facebook ads, Instagram, whatever. what I learned from you that changed all of my businesses was, regardless of what visibility source, and I think we should talk about this, regardless of what visibility source I'm using to generate new people in, once they're in, I have a model for keeping them engaged, consistently relating with them in a way that's authentic, providing value, and also making offers. And that was what was different about your business, was because I'm like a student of the game. Like, once you think you've made it, now you're arrogant and you're in trouble. But like, if you recognize that, like, there's always more to learn, you're always a student, you might be good at some stuff, but you should be paying attention to ways to improve yourself, right? So in studying around that time when I came to you and asked you for help, I was studying a lot of people, and the difference was you were constantly providing value with no direct monetization. It didn't feel like you'd have a promotion about something or whatever. You'd say, hey, I have this thing. But like, the way it felt was different. And that is Own the Race Course, or whatever it's called now. But back then it was called Own the Race Course, which was like, I think this model that for the digital landscape of, iTunes and YouTube and a Facebook account and blog, and like, for me anyways, in my career, I see you as the guy who pioneered that, the guy who I followed through that. I was like, and now I've added stuff, my own kind of thing, but like, I got this model from you. And this model is still what I do today. Yes, I have my advertising strategies. Yes, I do my whatever, but like, the core model is that content engine. So let's like talk about that. Like, what is that? How'd you find it? What are we doing?
It's the model Own the Race Course it's an idea or philosophy. So it's tactic agnostic. It doesn't really matter which platform you use to feed it. So in my case, podcasts have been strong. In fact, for our case, they were very strong. They get to find out about you in a nice way that's giving them a tremendous amount of value. So it's not forceful. It's not the what I call clubbing the baby seal, type method, which is very common, or was. Yeah. It also really caters well for people who are existing customers, because you're keeping them up to date with news, and we're all addicted to news. And then the other segment, which you were talking about today in your presentation, is people who have already bought from you, and you're reactivating them. They've already done business with you, but maybe they've drifted away, and they just get re-engaged. And then, of course, you can have people into multiple subscriptions. So it's not just email, it's not just your YouTube channel, not just iTunes. It could be a desktop push notification. It could be a ManyChat.
Whatever the communication
device.
What we're talking about is consistent thematic content.
Yeah,
right?
It's about being relevant and having context for the customer. And the great thing about it is you only ever have to look for your customer to get ideas on what to talk about. Whether it's
this was the part I was going to ask you about. Is like, okay, playing the devil's advocate, what if I'm not a good content creator? What if I don't know what to talk about? You know what I mean? These things that people are going to say.
Well, your customers pretty much give it to you. Even a prospect who's not a customer, who's sending you an email asking you about your product or service, is giving you guidance as to what sort of content to create. So that's a good starting point, is what questions are people asking you. Once you've got a body of content, it's easy to go and mine that and see which content is my 80-20. Like, which ones cause the opt-ins, which pieces of content do people resonate with, and you can actually do more of what's working.
Totally, you test a bunch of stuff. I mean, one of the things, like, the people watching this right now are folks who are engaging with the model that I have that is the same system. I put out audio content, mostly I put out video content, I occasionally write an article, I put it on YouTube, I send it onto my blog, I email about it, I put it through Facebook Messenger, and I do a lot of different stuff. I talk about life, I talk about relationship, I talk about e-commerce, I have interviews like this. I did this one style of video where I purchased a product, and as I purchased it, I documented how they got me with ads, the emails they sent me pre-purchase, the whole thing. I broke down their website, did like an e-commerce case study.
Yeah.
People
case studies are great.
Loved it. And then I just never did it again, which I don't know why. And then like last week, my lead copywriter was like, dude, that was our most popular piece of content ever. Like, why aren't we doing that?
That's what we look at when I meet with my team. It's like, what did we do that's worked well that we should do more of?
Yes.
What are we doing that we should stop doing? Because it's basically it's a stop, start, continue. And what are we doing that we should just keep doing? And you'll often hear people talk about Steve Jobs, Richard Branson, Jeff Bezos, Amazon. They're just case studying or latching onto something that everybody knows.
Sure.
So it's a really common one. Now, in our business, we have a business unit that does not revolve around me, and it's outside of the business space. And for that, we actually bring in a feed of all the top blogs and outlets in our industry, And my team curate from that the top content, and then they report on it. They basically report on it. They share links to that very useful content. Sometimes we make our own content from it, and we use original images or we credit sources, and we publish that on a daily basis.
Curated feed.
Yeah, and we've built up a big email list for that, and we've monetized that by putting ads around that property. So that's a case of where you don't have to do any of the steps.
Right, just like, these were great YouTube videos, these are great articles that were written.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because someone in that market is already trying to get all that, and you're making it more convenient for them, so you're curating that for them.
I'm going to pivot. Pivot?
Bzz,
It says, bringing people in on the joke. There seem to be these buzzwords that come through our community. Ninja and hustle, up level, and pivot is one of them that is like, somehow everyone is pivoting all of a sudden. I don't know where these things come from. Anyways, I am going to pivot to talk about an area that I think people really struggle, which something that I got my foundation in through you, which was I was a one guy operation. And I had some support folks, and I had like a coder, and I had some folks. I had a very small team, but this idea of a team at scale was really foreign to me and really scary, and felt like unmanageable and like something that I was not capable. I did not have the skill set to have. Now I have a team of 72, and the baseline principles I learned from you about team building, and I think that this is an area that people struggle with, is buying help. Yep. for their businesses. So what are your sort of basic strategies for that?
Well, first thing is recognizing that this is an inevitable step if you want to grow. Because as a solo operator, you really have a job-like business, and you can only get to a certain point. You might get a few $100,000 a year, maybe $1 million a year with a part-time assistant, but that's about it. Sure. So it's about recognizing you have a finite number of hours in a month. And once they're exhausted, then you're missing out on doing your strategy or implementing the next marketing thing or making that content or serving your existing customers, because you're too stretched trying to do everything from bookkeeping through to putting up a WordPress website, which we all start doing.
Which, by the way, one of the things that I find most people who are in our spot, or were in our spot where they're like single person operator or a couple people, the place they spend all their time is in the tech. It's like, get someone else in lead pages, in ClickFunnels, in Shopify, in Google Analytics, in email. You need to be doing the vision and the strategy, not the like sending out of the email. Like everyone is bogged down in the tech. It seems like a waste of time.
Well, I think the tech companies market well to those people, and the big problem in the beginning is that most people, when they're starting out, they don't have an offer that converts, so they're not getting funds to reinvest back into having someone else do it.
Totally.
So you start out doing it yourself to save money.
Yeah. Then so you kind of feel like you can't.
Usually hear people say, I can't afford that.
Right.
And they can't afford it because they don't have the offer that converts.
Sure.
So I suggest people focus on finding out that thing they can sell that people will give them money for, and then they use that money to reinvest back into the next stage of growth. And inevitably, people will come into it. And the easy wins are to start getting help with support, because that's something that is necessary in pretty much every business. Totally. It's also really easy to get people for that role, and it's a low cost. And then from there, you might move into the more advanced stuff like the web development and things like Facebook ads. If you can get help with that, or then premium content creation, those things will really help you scale a business.
Let's talk about your I do it, we do it, you do it system, because that little system really, that was like this is how you do it, SOPs, training people,
So this common complaint, I told them to do it and they did it wrong, or they messed it up.
Or like they suck.
Yeah,
and it was
I should just do it myself.
Yeah.
I can't get good people to do this. Well, for most of my career, whether it was in sales management, or in my online business, most of the people I hired were what you'd call greenhorns, like fresh. They didn't have the skills to do the job that I wanted them to do in the beginning, and I had to transfer the knowledge from me to them. So in the beginning, I would do it. I would actually do it, and I'd say, hey Ezra, you watch me pour this glass of water. Okay, and then I'd go like this. This is how we do it. I'm lifting the jug.
Risk control, yeah.
Tipping it, steady, holding my hand steady, and then I put it down. Okay, and then the next stage is I say, now I'm going to involve you, Ezra. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this glass. If you can do that, start tipping it. That's it. Keep going
and
and
gentle.
stop.
Okay.
Great. Good job.
So we did it together.
Yeah, now I'm going to praise you and say you actually did that really well.
So
In
gentle,
fact,
so gentle.
I think you could probably handle this yourself now. So if you could do it with this cup,
Just do it myself.
that's
here.
great. Whoop, easy
Okay.
there. That's very good. So next time, try and get a more consistent pour.
Yeah, so not that.
Let's try that
Got
one
it.
more
Okay,
time.
All
A
right.
little bit of encouragement.
Let's see if we can.
Perfect.
Okay, gentle.
You've nailed it. So just do it like that every time from now on, and I think you'll be able to serve yourself.
So
that's
I do it, we do it, you do it.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
if you can do that for each skill, then eventually that's now I don't have to get my own water anymore. I could say, Ezra, water please. And you know,
Yes, here you go.
so you don't have to continue, but you get the point.
One of the things that I don't know if you told me this or not, but I would do it, and then we would do it, and then they would do it, and then I'd have them create
Teach
the
someone else.
documentation.
Yeah.
You know, create documentation on it. So now they had to document what they did. And
That's
I
what
can look
people
over.
say. I don't have time to document it. Well, you don't document it.
Yeah.
Have them document it.
Yes.
Now, could you I'd say, Ezra, could you record yourself doing that? And then I want you to teach Freddie how to do it. So you don't really know something until you can teach someone else.
Yes.
So in my business, we have this other thing called the Noah principle, which is two people can do everything.
Noah, like the ark.
Yeah.
Got it.
Like two animals, right? So if Ezra leaves, then I can say, Freddie, you're now the number one water pourer.
Where'd you pick up Freddie from? You mean anyone named Freddie in the lobby now?
Right.
Freddie's an interesting choice.
I'd love you to teach Charlie.
Okay.
So you should always have two people. Otherwise, it's back to
Freddie
you.
and Charlie.
If Ezra's the only guy who knows how to do water other than
he's
you, and
just
he
stuck.
goes,
Yeah.
then it's back to me.
Got
And
it.
so it's like one step forward, one step back.
Yeah.
So teach them, and then have them document it, and then have them teach someone else.
Yes.
And so in our company, we have this simple register. It's just listing every task, and then the other column is every person. And I want to see 2 ticks in for
Each
every task,
Got it.
minimum.
Really
But in
smart.
our business, actually, almost everyone can do most of the jobs now. So we're extremely bulletproof.
Work less and make more. James Schramko, ladies and gentlemen. So, James, this is the part that I really, I think is, people consider that to be in conflict, to work less and make more. And I think that, one of the things that you've done really well is structured your business such that it is in support of a lifestyle that you desire. And I just, how do you explain how to do that? What is it a decision to hey, most of the stuff I'm doing isn't going to produce results, so I'm going to set real tight boundaries around my work life, and that's it? Is it just you just decide and you set those boundaries, and most people just are unwilling to set those boundaries? Or how does someone get there who feels like that is just, not where they're at right now?
Yeah, well, it didn't start out like that for me, of course. When I started out working, it was when my parents had a financial setback, so I needed to make money. Then I got married and had 4 kids, so I needed to make a lot more money. And by the time I started my online business, it was a situation where I was really trying to escape from this risk of having a high-paid job that could disappear at any minute, and I didn't want to repeat what happened to my dad. So I really just wanted to make money. There's no giving back or being unselfish here. It was just survival.
I think ultimately that's where it starts. First,
Sure.
you got to take care of yourself. Once you're taken care of, then you can think about other people.
So I took care of myself financially, but then I started to have compromises on my health and relationships, and I read 4-Hour Work Week, and
Which, by the way, I have not read. Is the message actually work 4 hours a week? Is that what it's saying?
he doesn't work 4 hours a week. but
I wouldn't imagine, but
it's good. 4-Hour Work Week was inspirational. It was sort of what led me down the path of outsourcing.
nice.
And there's some good concepts in there. But there was a bit of a disconnect for me because I had 4 kids and a wife. It's a book written by a young guy who's traveling around the world who had a supplement company was a big disconnection for me because it doesn't seem achievable. This book is more like a 4-hour work week for someone with kids or an actual job. And it's sort of a practical guide for that. But in my case, I felt like when I was in that pressure cooker of the dealership, running that dealership, I had 72 staff in a physical 3 locations. It was a lot of pressure. And I thought, I don't want to have to go to 65 until I can live my life. I didn't feel like I was living. And it was actually 10 years ago to now that I flew to America for my first US conference in online marketing. It was Yannick Silver's underground for. And that was a life changer. And I've kept coming over ever since. And over time, as I've built up wealth and I've fixed up my health, fixed up relationships, then I thought, whose goals am I living here? Whose life is this? And I've basically taken the reins back. And I thought, I want to surf. Thanks to you introducing me to that 4 years ago.
Stuck you out on a foam board.
Wow.
On a reef.
Changed my life, really.
I took you out. I said, it's going to be fun.
You said fall flat like
Fall
a pancake.
flat.
And I'm like, why would I want to do that? He said, because there's a razor sharp reef just like this deep. Like, great. Do you bring all your people out?
You handled it well.
I got into it I picked it up. But basically a complete life transformation. And a lot of the people that I'm coaching, I think they've taken their restrictor off, but they will blow up. And they might get money, but they lose a relationship or they lose their health. And I see, and maybe it's a little more in this market, there's a lot of ego around being able to walk in a room and bang their chests and talk about how financially successful they are or what car they're driving or whatever. And I've sort of been through the bell curve of it. I've had all that. I've had nice cars and I live in a nice house and all of those things. But ultimately, and even the flight over here, which was very bumpy for about 40 minutes, and people were vomiting and panicking, and I'm thinking, well, if this thing goes down, at least I've had a good life. I've lived, I've traveled, I've experienced things. I didn't just drive a desk or have the biggest pile of money. And as someone with kids and someone who's been able to experience more of the world, I think more people could have that if they were to make some small changes. So that's really my message.
I think it's a really good one. I was at this recent event as well where it was all about what I call baubles. The fancy car, the big piles of cash, the cigars. And it's like, man, and I have to reiterate this to my team a lot. My team who comes, I've hired a lot of people from other companies in this industry, and they're so conditioned to think that the goal is profit. And I'm like, hey, look, that is one of the goals. But the goal is quality of life, creating great products, not overworking ourselves, supporting our community and customers, and making profit in that order. Like, it's not profit at all costs. And people just believe like they got to just make that money. But it's like, man, what seems to happen if you take care of yourself and you focus on that, you focus on your relationships and your hobbies and your business, you do better in business. Yeah. Is it just a decision? Is that what it is? Ultimately, it's like you make the decision that you're going to prioritize your life. Ultimately, you're like, I'm going to set this boundary and I'm going to surf every day and I will work and I'll figure that out. But like, I'm going to focus, like, how do you, like, what's the action? Is it, I mean...
Well, yeah, it really is deciding. I think most people are living someone else's life, like either society's view of what life should be, or a lot of kids are going to university because that's what their parents want them to do. So I do say question everything. So for me, I just stepped up and I took responsibility for the life that I'm going to live, and I made changes. I actually called the original version of that wealthification, which was build a business that funds the lifestyle I want to live. And if I were to explain it in a sentence, I would say that I'm living now a life as if I'm semi-retired that I could sustain for decades. And I'm happy with this trajectory.
Yeah, and you're ultimately wealthier when you consider, because by the way, money is a slice of wealth.
Yeah.
Wealthier than if you just focus on making a whole bunch of money all the time. Do you remember that wealthification was a bonus module for Brown Box?
Right, and it was a very low resolution minimum viable product that I think the modules were 10 or 12 minutes each. And I
it's
put
a word you just made up.
Put it together in 3 or 4 hours, I think in total, and I was going to redo it. This book is really the newest version of that. This is the one that replaced that product, and it took a number of years.
We're going to end this with something that you told me about email, which completely changed my relationship to email, freed me up, and now I just like, I mean, this is not practical for most people, but it's just like, I may or may, if you email me, I may or may not respond ever, basically. And you either gotta, like, I talk to my team on Slack, that's who I talk to, and I text message my friends, I Facebook message my friends, but like, an email I'll check in or whatever. You know, I email my mom, but like this one viewpoint around email changed my life.
Is that the email is a to-do list that other people get to add things to?
Yeah. Once I had that framing that the email inbox was some to-do list that people were adding stuff to, I was like, no.
You're out.
I draw a line in the sand. You know?
That's it. I've got support desks for my customers.
Yeah.
I've got Slack for my team.
Totally.
Email is really only something that absolutely has to get done, such as a domain renewal or something like that.
And you know, if I get some business stuff that looks interesting, I might forward it to my team or whatever. But like,
and I still put on my emails that I'll reply to emails, and I will check emails from customers because, like, we want to hear from a prospect. I want to hear from a customer.
I mean, just like. Not
yeah.
I mean, if a customer's emailing about a product,
but it's,
of course.
You know, marketers and newsletters and all the other stuff that people are sending, that's optional.
Yeah. James Schramko, ladies and gentlemen.